Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Weiss, CEO of the Audit Group, TAG Inc. Thank you for joining us in this our presentation. I have three excellent speakers going to be sharing their experiences to us related to their healthcare organizations and the past year, the COVID-related environment that we have been experiencing. They're going to share some of their challenges, hopefully some successes that they've identified and been able to navigate, and give a little bit of look on what 2021, 2022 is going to be bringing. If you would like to submit some questions, I'd like to hold off maybe the last 5-10 minutes to answer any concerns, questions you might have for the speakers. And I would like to start this off by asking each of them to just briefly introduce themselves, talk about their organizations, kind of what their philosophies are, if you will, the culture, how they're operating, just trying to give you a flavor for, where they will be coming from within the next hour. So with that, Joel Stafford, VP, procure-to-pay at Secours Mercy Health. Joel, can you give us a little background on yourself and Secours Mercy, please?
Thank you, John. Yep, I'm Joel Stafford, Vice President of procure-to-pay for Secours Mercy Health. So just about 2 years ago, we formed, the two organizations came together to form the 5th largest Catholic healthcare system in the United States, Secours, which was located near the Baltimore area, and Mercy Health, which is located in Cincinnati, joined forces together, and it's been quite a ride from there. So we have about 50 hospitals. We're about $10 billion in size. Most of our hospitals, or all of our hospitals, on the East Coast, anywhere from Ohio, Kentucky, Florida, Virginia, etc., South Carolina. Great organization, great culture. I roll up within the supply chain, and I have responsibility for all the buyers as well as all of accounts payable. It's a pretty unique situation. I'm really pleased to be in this role after the merger, and we're doing some exciting things.
That's cool. So you really have one foot in both sides, both supply chain and disbursement. So you've got a unique little perspective on operations there. It's be real interested to hear what you've got to say as we get into this. We also have Sean Poellnitz, VP of Supply Chain for Mosaic Life. Sean, why don't you share with us a little bit about yourself and your organization, please?
Hey, thanks, guys. Good afternoon. Sean Poellnitz here, Vice President Supply Chain at Mosaic Life Care. Come to you with over 17 years of supply chain experience from the transportation industry, defense, and now healthcare supply chain. Right now, I'm at Mosaic Life Care. Past life was at United Healthcare, Christus Health, and CHI Health. We are 4 hospitals and 60 clinics, about 45 minutes outside of Kansas City, Missouri. I manage the full scope of supply chain from distribution, procurement, sourcing, GPO management, fleet management, print shop, and biomed. We are focused right now on being a resilient supply chain and being a true business partner to the organization. I think with everything that's happened in the past year, all of a sudden the supply chain gets an opportunity to be at that really strategic table. And I think that operations is keen on understanding that most of their plans will not be successful unless they understand can supply chain support the strategy and the resources and the services.
excellent comment there. I mean, can supply chain do that? Healthcare. That's been a question for years and years and years. We'd like to maybe get into that a little bit more as we progress here today. So thank you, Sean. And Mr. Steve Kelly, Director of Disbursements at Penn Medicine, outside of Philadelphia. Well, actually, inside of Philadelphia, I guess. I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization, Steve.
Thanks, John. As John said, I'm Steve Kelly. I'm the Director of Disbursements for the University of Penn Health System / Penn Medicine. We are a 6-hospital health system, about $4 billion a year in revenues. We have a variety of, on-site and off-site physician groups. We have a school of medicine and a school of nursing, and we pride ourselves on being a community organization, hiring within the community and funding the community and the economic life of the city and the locations where we're located. I've been doing this too long. I'm trying to get retirement soon, but the boss isn't going for it. Anyway, in my job, I'm responsible for accounts payable and payroll and system supports for those areas. I've been doing this work for almost 40 years now. And I guess Penn's mission is really threefold. It's education, it's research, and it's providing world-class healthcare to the community and the nation and worldwide.
Thank you, Steve. And again, what I got from Joel, Sean, and Steve is that we really do have 3 kind of diverse situations here. We've got Joel, who is in an organization where they have combined disbursements AP with the supply chain, and Joel's in charge of that connection there. Sean, traditional full-blown supply chain, and it sounds like disbursements is separate from you, so that poses the traditional challenges in its own right. And then Steve on the other side is disbursements, distinct from supply chain and the connections there. So 3 real nice perspectives on how these 2 very important business processes operate within healthcare, combined with the fact that, as Steve pointed out, really healthcare organizations are more than businesses, if you will. Their mission is really to take care of the communities that they're located in. Community health, which sometimes can conflict with the traditional mission and core functions of a traditional business, correct? So how do you balance those aspects out? Because the reality is money is important. And even though these are nonprofit organizations, money is a function that without it, you cease to operate. So there's constant challenge there. So what I would like to throw out, and Joel, if you wouldn't mind starting for us, COVID, right, popped up on the scene early last year, really went full blown in March and affected all of our organizations. So from your perspective, Joel, your goals going into 2020, if you could share some of that with us. I mean, did you have savings targets that senior leadership had given you that they wanted you to, produce in 2020? If so, COVID, did it throw a little wrench into those works? Or were you able to continue on with the mission? Or did you get those things modified? Or just what was 2020 for you, Joel?
Yeah, good question. I think COVID has helped us. Here was our goal going into 2020 was P2P 1T. That was my kind of moniker. Procure-to-pay, one team. So if you think about it, we were bringing 2 organizations together that did not have a P2P function. So I was tasked as the leader of basically 4 departments. A purchasing department on the Legacy Mercy side, an AP department on the Legacy Mercy side, a purchasing department on the Legacy Bon Secours side, and an AP department on the Bon Secours side. And to boot, of those 4 departments, they were in 3 different cities. So we had 2 in Cincinnati, 1 in Richmond, and 1 in Baltimore. So the moniker going into 2020 was P2P 1T. There was a lot of question in the organization. Is Joe going to bring all these people to one central location? So there was a lot of nervousness in that. And my right off the bat was, hey guys, I want talent and dedication regardless of location. So don't worry about where you are. If you're talented and dedicated, you're going to be on the team. Because yes, John, there were savings that were being pushed down to me to say, hey, Joel, we're putting in 2 organizations together. There should be some synergy savings. There should be some duplication of effort, et cetera. Especially, we're taking 2 ERP systems and putting them onto one Workday, which we went live in 2020 on Workday. So not only did you have a worldwide pandemic, we're trying to go to the cloud in Workday, which neither organization were with Workday. One was Lawson and one was McKesson. So it was a huge, huge effort. And then COVID hits. And I think what was beautiful about it, one, it pushed back our Workday launch date, which helped relieve some stress there in terms of gaining those synergy savings. And I think it was an equalizer. As you can see, I'm at home right now. We've been home. We've been told we're not going to the office anytime soon. So we've been told from our corporate office, everybody works from home. So it's kind of an equalizer. Who cares if you're in Cincinnati or Baltimore or Richmond? We're all on Zoom like we're at right now. Regardless of where that little 2-inch box is, that's what the team looks like every day. We're meeting every day on Zoom and talking through situations. So that has kind of broke down and equalized the location situation. So in that regard, COVID's helped, and I think it's opened the eyes of management to say this might be what it looks like going forward. We might work from home, and we've been told that when we are allowed to go back to the office, it's not going to look like it looked in February of 2020. It's probably going to be maybe some hotel spacing. Maybe you're working from home 3 days out of the week. I don't know. There's lots to be said there, but I will say, as the leader of this group, I'm comfortable with people working from home. And if you can get the job done and you're talented, you're dedicated, let's go. We can be productive right where we are. So in that regard, John, I think COVID has helped. I run back to a quote that our CEO, John Starcher, said right as the pandemic hit and we basically impacted everything in March. He said, bad companies are destroyed by a crisis. Good companies survive them. Great companies are improved by them. So I kind of use that, take out the word company and put in department. Bad departments are destroyed by a crisis. Good departments survive them. Great departments are improved by them. And that's why I'm keeping pushing to my folks, hey, we're going to be improved by this crisis just by trying to find new ways to work, et cetera. And there's been a ton of challenges, no doubt, with Workday, et cetera. But overall, it's been a positive experience, if you can imagine. So.
Well, that's actually, I'm very surprised to hear that you're looking at this as positive, and that's an awesome comments, Joel. I appreciate that. So, Sean, how's the COVID affected y'all? Are you similar to Joel? Everybody working remotely, or are you trying to hold it together, or how are you all dealing with this?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So we had. We did have to very quickly move forward to put some plans together so that those that could work from home did. Of course, when you have a distribution team who must be here every day, the question was around making sure that they are, safe. And the largest thing was that COVID had us become more agile. It had us make decisions quicker. It eliminated some of that normal business formality that kind of gets in the way of speed and execution. When this thing hit, we were in incident command, right? So I'm in the room with my peers, and we are working through smart plans to keep the community safe and to do what's needed to make sure that hospital operations runs effectively. And you're facing an event that you don't normally see, that may happen once in 100 years. In the same token, the question is how do you launch cost controls? How do you balance that with also needing at times just to get the PPE, just to get what's needed resource-wise? And then how do you balance the strategic aspects of your business? We still manage to pull off a GPO RFP. We still manage to negotiate cost reductions with our PPI. We still manage to create some type of forecasting system so that we could be the good business partner and start telling operations, here's our supplies, here's our inventory, here's what's en route, and this is how it looks based on current burn rates, which were changing every hour. I mean, the numbers, the data was crazy. I mean, you had to make new models, and even those models were partly directional because your burn rates in certain categories, gloves, masks, whatever, were going up 2,000%, 5,000%. In that same kind of world, all of a sudden your major distributions weren't going to be the right channel. So all of a sudden you started needing 30 to 40 different suppliers, and then how do you qualify them, and how do you get samples, and then how do you negotiate the material being shipped from overseas, and what's going on, and is it here yet? Is it in the US yet? And then what's going on with China, and what's going on in Malaysia? There's all these questions that overnight supply chain became on the forefront, but we had to partner with operations to get things done. Now, what's so fortunate is that supply chain is in the CFO division here. So my boss is the CFO. He made a commitment day one that we would not be a roadblock. Sean, do what you need to do to support operations. What was so nice about this is our number one secret weapon was AP. Because when we started to negotiate with these new suppliers and trying to do bulk buys, all that kind of stuff, everyone wanted all type of different payment terms. Everyone wanted credit card or cash and gold and everything else, right? But we had great partnership within the CFO division to help us navigate these terms and make things happen. All of a sudden in healthcare, we became a global overnight, and we became very agile in working internally with everyone to figure out, okay, how does this work? When we do these new programs, when we support COVID, how are we reimbursed? How do we pay it? How do we drive cost control? How do we get the right resource to the right place? And all of this made us a better health system because the trial, the challenge, and the adversity grew our muscles, and there was a very slim room for error. So I think what Joel said is true, that the challenges brought opportunities, and that the challenges have us now thinking we can change how we do business and still be successful. And so that's where we're at now. Now there's one slight risk. With all of that change, and with as hard as we went last year, I mean, there was really no vacations, everyone's going hard, you know, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. We have to also now start looking at our people, right? What's the wear and tear on our people, and how do we make sure that they have that balance, because it's not over yet, right? And then how do we, in a way, maintain this state where we're always pandemic ready, while we are able now to start to forecast future business years. So all of these are brave challenges that we will take on, and we will succeed.
Wow. That's a hell of a story, Sean. I appreciate you sharing that. And again, you seem to be going down the same line that Joel was in terms of the good organizations respond positively to challenges. And I know just with the few years I've been in healthcare, I've noticed that sense of urgency is not one of the strong attributes of the typical healthcare organization. And yet this crisis has really forced changes to be made, attitudes to be developed, movement to be done much faster than what you're normally used to. And it sounds like if you can hold on to that dynamic, you can continue that movement going forward and continue to change positively. So that's pretty cool. So Steve, let's go to you with the being on the disbursement side. Now we've got this crisis that just overnight killed everybody. And I'm sure you're, as the saying goes, stuff flows downhill. And you certainly had to have felt, all these departments, the organization, again, buying the PPE and having shortfalls and not being able to get it. And now all of a sudden, it's like the Wild West, right? Prices, new vendors, terms, as Sean pointed out, all over the place. How have you been able, or have you been able to really manage that dynamic shift and take care of departments that are probably screaming at you because they got to get these vendors paid for them to get their equipment?
It's interesting listening to Sean and Joel. We were able to meet our challenges, but I think from a different perspective, when COVID first hit, a lot of our volumes immediately dropped. So we had people that had to move, work remotely. We had a lot of challenges with that, with equipment and technology. People didn't have laptops or PCs at home, didn't have internet at home, things along those lines, phones, of course. So the whole challenge of getting people home was not an easy challenge to overcome in the beginning. And as the hospital basically shut down for all elective procedures, the volume of purchases overall went down. But there certainly was a shift now to the PPE equipment. As COVID kind of went along, we set up all these community-based testing sites that required, new vendors for tents and outside equipment and security personnel to secure the site. So a whole different type of procurement channels and products and services we needed to pay for. We met those challenges pretty easily because we had people where their volumes went down, they were ready to do that kind of work. So that was kind of, I don't want to say easy, but set up a new vendor, all those challenges, we were of course able to accommodate that. The bigger challenge came when we started opening up again, because now the volumes are back on the patient side and the volumes on the procurement side are growing. So now we are continuing to support the community with the testing sites and all of those things, as well as getting our normal supplies back in and normal vendors. So we certainly added a ton of new vendors. We had to expand our ACH program. We had to expand our credit card payment program. We had to expand to some degree our wire payments, which we don't necessarily like to do. Terms was another issue, as these guys mentioned. The 60-day terms we're accustomed to, they're pretty laughable when someone says, I want prepayment or payment in one day. Purchasing obviously helped negotiate that to something more reasonable, but we're turning around payments in a week. So we were able to kind of manage that through the volume changes. But then when the volumes came back, it became more difficult. And then we became aware of performance issues with the staff. When your volumes drop and you're working from home and no one's watching you, you're getting your work done. But as the summer went along in the fall, the volumes are up and now we're finding out, okay, we don't know that these people are actually doing what they need to do at home. So then we were challenged with performance issues and performance reporting and a whole set of other things we needed to kind of get our hands around for the folks that are working at home. We do have a few people that still work on site doing our mail and our scanning and things along those lines. So we've been looking, and we've had some success of trying to find either different ways to do that or new solutions to help us with that. So we've had a lot of challenges. I would say we were successfully meeting most of those challenges, specifically with making payments, which is our primary function in accounts payable. But there's still a lot of challenges out there. It looks like our staff will be working remotely forever. At least that's what they're telling me. So all those issues and concerns we had, we need to further strengthen and build the tools around that and look at different models to make sure we still get the performance. I know Sean and Joel are mentioning, dedication and all those things. You don't always find that with your entry level folks. So I think it's a bigger challenge when you have a higher number of entry level folks. Some, of course, are all over it, and others are looking for ways not to work as hard.
So are all of your people working from home, Steve, or most of them?
So yeah, most. So we really had 3 people that have been on site, never left. And we've since brought back 2 other people that work part-time in the office and the other days at home, depending on what work needs to get done. What we did find is a lot of the work that needed to be done on site really rolled uphill to the director and myself, because we weren't going to bring people in for 2 hours a day. So rather than bring a full-time, AP rep in for 2 hours to do stuff that needed to get done on site, that fell to us to do, or to the other 3 people that may have been here. So it was a shift, like an upward delegation of work. So as COVID changes, and the last couple of weeks, and even really before Christmas, we started bringing back people either a day at a time. So some of the work that used to get done every day now is getting done every week or every 2 weeks. So it really depends on the urgency of the work, what the work is. You'd like to keep up with invoices you have to return to vendors with no PO number, but you used to do that daily, and that's not getting done daily now. So we had to really look at the processes and see where they needed to be changed. The people that print the checks, they're still coming on site. So we combined all our check runs to one day, where we used to do maybe 3 days a week. We would cut different types of payment runs. So all the payment runs are done in one day now. All the approvals are done in one day. So we really had to reorganize a lot of the processes to support the staff that's working from home.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical. You just indicated process. And 3 things that we really try to pay attention to here at TAG. People, processes, and tools, right? And with the COVID, I mean, I'm an old school type of manager. I like seeing people on one location because I can see them, and it just makes me feel more comfortable. I see people working. I know something's going on. Then when this hit, boom, everybody dispersed. And I was kind of freaked out about it, but it is what it is. But I had great leaders in the company, and we were really been able to manage our people from home through various, tools that we've adapted to the computers and all this good stuff. But it's important, and I finally told everybody that, look, if you can maintain the productivity from home, when this is over, you can stay home. I'm not going to require you to come back to the office as long as you can stay productive. And we can measure the production, and we've got KPIs and all that. So that goes to the people, process, and tools. So Joel, along those lines, again, you've got a great team. You look for talent and dedication. We call that attitude and aptitude. Extremely important. You can teach people to do a job. You can't really teach attitude and aptitude. So, that's extremely important from our perspective. But all of your people are at home. How did you have to modify your tools, your processes to continue to accomplish the mission with your people being totally dispersed?
Yeah, we had just started before COVID. We started a huddle which was every Monday morning for 15, 20 minutes just to talk about, things that are going on that week, things that we wanted to concentrate on. And they were kind of virtual huddles. You'd hear 20 or 30 people in Cincinnati in the conference room. You'd hear 20 or so in Richmond and Maryland, et cetera. They obviously went Zoom. And so every Monday morning, all of our folks are right there on the Zoom screen, and we're seeing each other, and we're talking about the week. We're celebrating birthdays. We're celebrating work anniversaries, et cetera. And then we're talking about things that are coming up that week. And so that would be one modification. And actually, somebody said last week, Joel, I see more of you now than I saw before COVID. And that was true because, I couldn't get to every city and stay there for a length of time. And now every time I'm in a meeting with that person, he or she is seeing me and I'm seeing them. So Zoom has been huge. It's also helped the people in not only see me, but see each other and get to know each other. So I think, it's been really important. I think a couple pillars of leadership that are so important are relationships and communication. And I think this has made this COVID situation and working remotely has made me and my other leaders be more intentional about those two things, relationships and communication, and making sure that you're reaching out and just asking about how they're doing, et cetera. Things you would normally do at the water cooler or things you would see in the break room or the lunch room. You kind of have to be intentional about, hey, reaching out. Whenever I get an email from somebody, I'm tagging on something else about them personally, or just asking some question that I would maybe ask them at the water cooler, et cetera. So that's sort of the relationships. And then the communication, trying to get the messages out. You have to be really intentional. And honestly, we could do better at that. For sure, I could do better at that. It's made it more challenging from that regard. So that's what I would point to, John, in terms of how I'm using this time period to touch people, use the tools, et cetera. Processes I don't think have changed. Honestly, we were pretty much as everybody is pretty much an electronic world. We do have people coming into the office, Steve, like yourself. Doing the mail, cutting the checks, and honestly, it's been kind of a ammunition or a driver to say, hey, vendors, we don't want your paper invoices. We want you to send your invoices via email or via EDI. We don't have people in the office to open this mail, so if you want to get paid on time, please send it this electronic method. Same with payment. Like Steve said, they've kind of ratcheted back how often we make our payments. We have as well, from a paper standpoint, and we're really using this time to push electronic payment. We want to get to, we're right now at the 86, 87% electronic payments. We want that to be up around 95. We want to do away with checks. I mean, I'm sure there's nobody on this screen and nobody listening gets a paper paycheck. So why are we doing that with vendors? It should be an electronic ACH or a credit card settlement. It should not be checks. So we're trying to drive checks out of the business, and this COVID has actually helped us.
I can tell you that as a supplier, as a vendor, I certainly enjoy the electronic payments also.
Sure.
It gets money in our account a heck of a lot faster. So
absolutely, especially with the status of the USPS nowadays. I sent Christmas cards that are just now arriving. So, I hear what you're saying, John. Thank you.
Yeah. The phrase that comes to my mind is from back in grad school. It's high tech with a high touch. And it's important. It's important. And I'm hearing, again, phrases that are resonating in my mind when I'm hearing you all speak. It sounds like you're transitioning from managers to leaders, right? It's as dispersed as everybody is. While we can see what they're doing, it's important to have people that are self-driven, that have the initiative, as you said earlier, talent and dedication, and just let them loose, let them know what's expected, and just give them space to get the job done. And this environment requires that type of a personality. Sean, I want to ask you, you were talking about, you report to the CFO. So you're kind of in the finance track, which is about 50% of supply chains nowadays, I believe, in the healthcare industry are reporting to finance. And I think that's the realization just how important money is, right? You indicated that, you're not a roadblock. You're not going to be a roadblock to getting things accomplished. And how has, if at all, your relationship with AP changed in the last year, for better, for worse, or, somewhere in between?
Right. I'm always a very transparent person, and there no doubt we had a very intentful effort in the past couple of years to improve that collaboration, to improve those relationships. Historically, on both teams, you have strong personalities. I think when the pandemic hit, it was like all hands on deck. And it was like, we're in the ocean, there's a storm, we're on the boat, we're taking on water. Man, it's bad. Man, it's real bad. And it's just like, there's no time freezing, except us all working together to get to shore. And through this came a wonderful opportunity for us to truly learn each other, for us to truly collaborate, because to position our health system for success and adding on so many vendors and negotiating with these vendors with the payment terms and the credit cards and all prepaid, all kinds of strange nature of things, we started to see each other as people who were sharing a common goal. And we started to really start to bond around that mission. And it was just a beautiful kind of business example of how when there's a common goal, you start to put away personalities and focus on that larger win. And we learn more about each other, and we learn better ways to communicate and to effectively co-labor, right? And so that was the shining opportunity to co-labor and to communicate, because really so much of it was just a historical opportunity to communicate more, right? And so that has brought us to where, from a supply chain standpoint, it became evident that no matter how we source, our success was linked to AP helping us pay the vendor. So once those themes became really clear, I saw just a evolution to where right now you have two teams who are very tight and who work together to just drive wins. So where there's challenges, there's opportunities. My biggest thing for leaders is, especially my own philosophy around the core of your leadership, flows around three levels: your self-awareness, your relationships, and your perceptions. And understanding how all of those are one big circle, that they really integrate each other. The more self-aware you can be, the better relationships you can form. And as you're thoughtful about those relationships, you understand the perceptions both ways. And so I think a part of the challenge has made us better leaders, no matter what your title is.
Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely correct. Could you give me, and again, we've got clients all over the United States, right? And the reality is, some of our clients, AP and supply chain, are tight, they're beautiful, they're going hand in hand singing Kumbaya every day. And others, it's a little more tenuous. Is there any tip or piece of advice that you could provide? Just one that maybe could help facilitate, supply chain and AP working together better?
So one quick thing that we did, we have a business review process with our suppliers where we look at the book of business over the past year, understand, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. But we started to involve AP in that and almost started to integrate that if you're a good supplier partner, a part of that is not just how you support operations or how you support the contracting process or the sourcing process, but how are you partnering with AP? And getting AP involved in that business review process, I think went a long ways for us to show them, hey, you are meaningful to us internally as our partner. And it showed the supplier that, oh, I need to strategically work better with AP because that counts.
Yeah, that's smart. That's cool.
Yeah,
So,
John, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer this or not, but I tell you what has worked at our organization, because I'm coming from two different organizations forming
Right.
one, and each one had basically 4 leaders, AP purchasing. In this new role, they created a role that was responsible over both of those, purchasing and AP. And so when I hear someone on my purchasing team say, well, AP's not doing it, I'm like, they're on a call with you every Monday morning at the huddle. They're your team. The fact that they're one team, then it sort of calls that out and calms them down. They start to get to know them, et cetera. So I think a singular leader really helps quell any type of relationship stress. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And again, the word y'all have used, and it just absolutely correct, is communication. You have to communicate internally, externally, between yourselves, within yourselves. There's no, so you can buy, you can spend $20 million on an ERP system, but if you're not communicating, it's going to be a very expensive tool that's going to just be pushing out crud. So, Steve, from your perspective, dealing, again, not just with supply chain, but with all these, independent departments, especially ones that like to buy stuff and there's no PO, so it doesn't really give you much assistance when an invoice comes in. How do you handle that? I mean, what are your words of advice to an organization that might be in a similar situation? What do you do in those regards?
Well, it's a good question. We certainly have a fairly good relationship with our procurement folks. As you know, I think it helps that the 2 leaders, Wayne and I, are very close friends, so the staff is aware of that relationship, so they tend to watch out before they accuse the other group. But I think communication is huge, and what we try and do is partner with each other, procurement and AP, and go back to the various areas that are creating all the discrepancies for the both of us. So we don't really look at it as there's a pricing problem, it's purchasing's fault, or there's a missing receipt, it's purchasing's fault, or the invoice wasn't matched properly, it's AP's fault. We kind of gather the data and look at the source of the root. And most times we need to identify and find that it's the end user department that, called the vendor after the PO was issued, added an EDI item to it, so an EDI invoice came in. We have, our OR folks that aren't looking at the confirmations. So, they're doing a lot of subs with the whole COVID thing. Subs are the new thing now. So we partner together to try and find out where the issue's coming from and work with that leadership team to fix it. So we're not really at each other's throats as much as let's find out where the problem is. And sometimes the problems are in one of our areas as well. So we can easily identify that and hopefully rectify that. I'd have to say, though, even though we have that relationship and we look to do those things together, our discrepant invoices have increased. And when I talk to the materials folks, they're having the same issue that we're having with productivity, with people being from home, contracts not getting updated timely. So it gets back to like the performance issues I was speaking of earlier. We can be the leaders and we can kind of look over this stuff, but the work needs to get done, and we can't spend all day double checking that the staff below us did what they needed to do. So again, we're looking for tools to do that for us, to do that reporting. But again, the communication, as Sean and Joel said, it's huge, that you need to get along with each other. You need to appreciate and respect what each other of you guys do and how it falls together. Because one piece fails, the whole process fails. And that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Going a different question here, and direct this toward you, Joel, but it's appropriate for all you guys. I mean, in today's environment, mergers and acquisitions, I mean, every day, you know, there's some hospital that's either being acquired or acquiring somebody else, right? M&A. Joel, a question for you, because you're right in the middle of two pretty good sized systems coming together. The question I want to pose is one of culture. How did you find, did these two organizations, how were their cultures pre and post? Was that an issue with you at all, trying to get everybody thinking the same way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say pretty fortunate in that our cultures, at least our mission statements, were very similar. We are a ministry for sure. We're a Catholic health ministry. In our mission statement, it says we want to extend the compassion and healing of Jesus in our communities. And you could almost word for word, the mission statements of either one, very similar. Well, that was good. However, the culture, what you're saying is, one was more business oriented and one was more compassionate. We could say that. And so that's been a bit of a water and oil almost. So there's been some challenges in that regard, and I wouldn't say that those are ironed out yet. And that's going to happen anytime you have a large merger. But I think overall, the fact that we are a ministry has helped bring the two organizations together, and we're going to be growing. We just bought 3 hospitals in Southern Virginia earlier in the year, and earlier in 2020, and we'll be bringing, the hope is that we'll have some more in 2021. Don't know, did that answer the question, John? I mean, there certainly is a culture divide, and that's where communication, relationship, all that helps kind of quell that.
Yeah, as I asked Sean, I mean, could you give a recommendation, something that you're doing or that you want to do to try and bring those cultures together? Because I know this is going on with health systems all over the country, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners may be experiencing this also. Any bit of insight from your experience?
Touch people a lot, really, and let them get to know you, because the people on I want to say my side of the house, my legacy organization knew me. I was there for 12 years. So they trusted me, et cetera. We had great relationship. I would just say get in for those folks on the other legacy organization and allow them to get to know you and do things that are not work related, and really bring life into the office as much as possible. And again, you got to be even more intentional about that in a remote situation. But I would say just be real and get to know the other side as much as possible, and not let the hearsay kind of rule the day, and just get in there and rub elbows, and they'll find out you're a real person that really wants to do a great job, just like they are.
Yeah. So be willing to show your humanity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Steve, you've been going through some M&A situation also, in terms of you working with, other AP departments and trying to bring them together. Any bit of advice related to that?
Yeah, it's interesting. We pride ourselves on being a community-based employer, but we're in the city, and the hospitals we've acquired recently are not in the city, and in some cases more rural areas. And the culture at those organizations are pretty similar to themselves, but not to us, where they can provide services that we can't at a level of shared services. So they might have, 5 AP clerks sitting there, and you can walk down and say, hey, can you pay this invoice? And they cut a check right for you right then and there, where that doesn't work down in corporate shared services. We have schedules, we have procedures, pretty hard and fast rules and dates and all those things. So, if you don't get your approvals in on time, your invoice waits, and their vendors needed to understand that, and certainly the hospitals that we acquired needed to kind of change. And unfortunately for them, as I said, we can't provide the level of service they provided, and that's a big, it's disappointing to me that we can't, and it's disappointing to them because that's what they've been used to. So there's a lot of other cultural issues, but I think from an AP perspective, that was the biggest one, where the AP staff was really, not that they weren't working, but they were sitting there waiting to service anyone in the hospital with the need. And we don't work that. We're quite the opposite. We're saying, here's the process, you follow it. And obviously we need to do that because, the reduction of force and all the shared services, synergies and all those things. So we can't support that model. And that's maybe why we acquired these folks. But it's disappointing to know that the level of service has dropped for those areas when we brought them on our shared service model.
You think that'll change in the near term future, or is that just going to be a permanent situation?
I think it will change when we get better tools. I think it's changed already. We used to have a paper-based non-PO check request process. When we automated that, that was a huge, huge satisfier for not only the newer entities, but all of the entities, because the whole paper thing just doesn't work. So as we get better tools for the PO side, where we can provide the level of service that they used to have, I think everyone will be a lot happier. But again, we need the tools.
Yeah. Well, we're about 9 minutes away from the hour that we allotted this, and I don't know about you guys, but you've been fantastic, and I've got millions of questions I could keep going on with. But Candace, do we have any questions from any of the participants that you'd like to share?
Hello, yes, we do. Let me go ahead and read this. How has COVID impacted organizational goals for cost savings, both as a whole and within your respective departments?
You want to try that one, Sean?
I think that COVID has made us more mindful around forecasting, right? So, for example, like Steve said, if there was a savings goal, but you stop surgeries for 2 months, right? Then maybe what you forecasted might shift. Now, with there being a high census, there seems to be a lot more volume and a lot more opportunity to kind of have a process where you can forecast. But I think when you look at what happened in the pandemic world, I think we become a little bit more sensitive to forecasting what's going to happen next 3 years. I think it's almost laughable now, right? There is ever going to be a pressure on cost control, and there is going to also be, I think, a renewed interest in understanding not just cost control, but the total cost of ownership. And then from the physician aspect, understand what's the cost of ownership, what's the strategy, and how are we going to be reimbursed. I think that those pressures will consistently be there because we have to lower our costs. If not, that's just normal operations. But when we look at how much more we're spending on masks and gloves and all that, it becomes even more strategic to say supply chain or whoever, how do you take costs out of my system?
Yeah, that, and it makes me wonder, and it's, again, I think this is kind of dovetails in an overall cultural issue, but COVID crisis hit, and the financial impact upon our hospitals, significant, absolutely significant. People laid off, procedures ended, revenue disappeared. And so it's like, let's hunker down and let's try and get more efficient, if you will, in all respects, because they have to. Now, as this release is going forward, and Joe, let me throw this at you. Do you believe that the lessons learned, if you will, from this past year in terms of needing to operate efficiently, do you think those will be held on to? Or as revenue starts coming back in, things start loosening up, we'll fall back to our old ways?
I don't think anytime soon, honestly. The pressure is still on us. I think all three of these guys, I think everybody on here could relate to that. The pressure is still on. The volumes are still off. Folks are not doing elective surgeries as often as they had pre-COVID. Our supply expense is still high, and we're not getting any government money this year. We were fortunate. We got some big checks, some big payments in 2020. I think that's dried up, but our volumes are still off. Our expenses, our PPE expenses are still high. I think, John, that we're going to be more tight-fisted at least through 2021. Maybe 2022 it starts to lighten up, but no time soon. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm hearing you're saying that this is really an opportunity for supply chain and AP to really shine, to be the heroes to the organization.
That'd be great.
That would be. That would be. I absolutely remember way back when I got started a few years ago that, you know, well, it wasn't even supply chain, it was purchasing. It was pre-materials management, right? But purchasing, they were like the redheaded stepchild of the organization. You know, absolutely no respect. Offices were, you know, down in the basement next to the morgue. And, you know, just buy me what I need. You know, there was really no thought about logistics, true supply chain, and that's changing. So there's still an opportunity, I think, in healthcare. Very much real opportunity for you guys to be their heroes, and that's what's needed right now more than anything. So, Candace, do you have any other question?
Yeah, we actually have one more, and it is towards Steve. So Tommy sent in a question saying he's an AP intern listening in, and he's learning a lot so far. He's working from home as his first job out of college, and it's definitely not the norm, but you know, to not meet any of his coworkers in person. But he did ask you, Steve, did you notice an increase in human errors on returns or duplicate payments?
Well, hopefully we find those duplicate payments before Mr. Weiss comes around again. It's hard to say. We have more discrepant invoices. I don't know, and I don't have the data around me to tell you if it's related to human error or not. I don't know that working remotely would increase the human error issue. It will certainly decrease the volume and the productivity. So I can't really answer that because I don't have the data around it.
Joel or Sean, either one of you guys have an idea on that?
I would say that we're in such a position of flux with Workday coming on and changing systems. It's hard to compare year over year, so I don't have a good answer.
Yeah. I think the operative word is change. You know, yeah. Sean, why don't I give you the last word here? We got 1 minute left. What are your thoughts?
Sure. I think if you look at everything that happened last year, I think it made us deeply reflective to what it means to be American. What that means is that we are a country of people that have similar needs, and those needs really revolve around us wanting to give the best towards each other, being ready to dig in and do whatever hard work is needed to get the job done, and that our success is contingent on that weakest link in the chain. And together we're going to win. No doubt this has become a global world, but there's still that American spirit and humanity that is so key for our success. And the more we give towards each other, the more we're selfless, the more we collaborate, the better position we are long-term for ourselves, our families, and future generations.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. And what came to my mind listening to you were the words of that famous philosopher, Larry the Cable Guy. Just get her done.
Get her done.
Get her done.
So, gentlemen, Steve, Joel, Sean, I want to thank you very, very much for your time in this. Hopefully, our listeners gotten some, nuggets of brilliance and intelligence out of this. I want to thank you all and wish you the best. And hopefully, we can all be together here a year from now and tell better, war stories about success in 2021.
Amen.
Sounds good.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Nice meeting you guys.
You too.
Nice meeting you.
Yep.
Mhm.